Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Catholic Education Foundation podcast number 29. This month's guest will be Jay Lilly. Jay is a Catholic school graduate and a bourbon enthusiast, along with Mr. Rich Lecklider, the president of the Catholic Education Foundation of Louisville. Jay, welcome to podcast number 29.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Appreciate you being here. So we're in the midst of the Foundation's third annual Bourbon Raffle. We thought it would be great for our audience to learn more about the industry, and in particular, the variety of bourbon tours that are available to consumers across the Commonwealth.
Excellent. Yes.
So Jay, thank you for
Happy
being
to
here. First, listen, so we talked a little bit off air here, but you are a Catholic school grad, you all the way through.
True.
So explain to us about your upbringing and your family and your Catholic school experience.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, family-wise, I'm blessed. I've got all girls in my house. My wife, Heather, my daughter, Maddie, who's a junior at U of L, and I've got an 8th grader at Our Lady of Lourdes currently.
Okay.
But going back with myself, I'm a good old Southern South End boy.
Right.
Grew up at St. Polycarp out there, and then went on to Holy Cross. I was one of the in that class. I was the first 4-year graduate of
Holy Cross.
Holy Cross, right?
Now St. Polycarp's now St. Andrew, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think it's St. Andrew now.
Yeah.
Had a
Columbine Avenue, yeah.
had a mother who went to AM and a dad who went to Bishop David, so the bloodline, and then moved on to Bellarmine. So definitely a true
Catholic school all the way through there.
Go
Absolutely.
Knights.
Right.
Go Knights.
God, it's changed now. I'll date myself. I was there when it was called Bellarmine College.
Ooh, okay.
So that,
not university.
Right. Yeah, so it's come a long way, and I love it.
Jay, how has Catholic education impacted your life?
It is the core of, I guess, of my life. I'll be honest. I've been blessed to have the opportunity first, and what that education and the foundation of core values that it's instilled in me has been phenomenal. But when I look at what it's done, all the way up till today, if I pulled my phone out right now, from my first grade class, I have 9 guys that have been inseparable from my first grade class.
Wow.
And we have done everything.
That's pretty cool.
That speaks volumes right there.
100%. Wow. We left. We all went to various colleges. We all took different career paths. Yep. We've lived in various different states. But we have never left. 9 of us are inseparable.
That's pretty cool.
And it's something I treasure, and it's a blessing to me every day.
You don't get that in other school settings. The Catholic school communities foster that sort of situation. So that's pretty cool. And you hear those situations all the time when it comes to Catholic schools.
All the time.
Yeah, and on top of that, it continues down the path of what it's brought value to me and my family even today. When you look at my daughter who's wrapping up her 8th grade year at Our Lady of Lourdes, the friends and families that we've been a part of these last 9 years. I mean, we just got back from spring break down in the Panhandle. And where were we all at? All together.
Oh, yeah.
All of us down there, we're all together. We all took different cars, but it's just been a true core blessing to me.
Now, Jay's super involved in the basketball side over at Our Lady of Lourdes, so he's very familiar with the CSAA, and obviously the CSAA is not what it is today without the Catholic Education Foundation, so a lot of great synergy there, too.
100%. Yeah, I've been blessed to be the boys basketball coordinator over there for about the last 6 or 7 years. Even though I don't have a son over there, it does allow me to have that opportunity to be, involved with the school and
it's wonderful.
Folks.
Yeah, and our sponsorship of the basketball championship, this was our 2nd year,
right?
And it's just been phenomenal. It keeps, remember, the reason we do it helps make sports more affordable for families in the schools.
Everybody
by
plays.
Lowering the fees. Yeah.
Right.
So
everybody plays.
It's been wonderful.
All right, Rich, before we get too deep in here with Jay, we're in the middle of the Foundation's huge bourbon raffle. It's going on as we speak. Tell me about it.
Yep. It's going great. We launched it a few weeks ago. It's an online raffle. There's 25 prize lots. There's over 100 bourbons, and we'll talk about the details of that in a bit.
Right.
You go to our website, ceflou.org, and hit Bourbon Raffle. Buy your tickets. It's $100 a piece. We're limiting this to 10,000 tickets. It'll sell out, and that's going to be a huge fundraiser for the mission of the foundation. It's going to go directly into the hands of our kids when they go back to school in the fall, and it'll help hundreds and hundreds of kids.
So what's the impact beyond helping hundreds of kids?
Well, look, I think what we're trying to do is allow families a choice, right? We're trying to say to anybody in this community that wants their kid to go to a Catholic school but can't afford it, the answer is yes. It's a pretty simple slogan that's turned into a mandate. And now, last fall, we had a record 3,700 kids that we assisted with funding, record funding of $8 million. So the impact is enormous on so many families, thousands of them actually. And if you think about the different school communities that Jay's talking about, some of our schools, St. Rita, for example, in South Louisville on Preston Highway, the school's booming, the enrollment's doing very well.
Right.
And we support 7 out of every 10 kids in that school.
Unbelievable.
So that impact, that's our number one funded school. That's enormous. Without our donors, St. Rita's School really doesn't exist for anybody.
Well, you mentioned the answer is yes as being the slogan that's turned into a mandate. It really has. And that was a risky slogan to take on, because is the answer actually going to be yes? And it has to be, and that's why we need your support. And this Bourbon Raffle is a really good way to support the foundation and at the same time have a chance to win something really, really cool. Yeah,
listen, we're going through a process now for the fall Tuition Assistance Awards. We're going through that process as we speak. And while we're not finished yet, we won't be done really until school starts. It's probably going to be a record number of kids we're going to help this year. The demand's clearly up. That means we're going to need a record amount of funding. That's why this event is so important near term to answer that call for what will be the 9th year in a row that we could say the answer is yes to everybody.
So the raffle closes on May 21st, so you have until May 21st to get your tickets. So if you have not done so yet, please do so. Help us out. You're helping a great cause with also an opportunity to win some pretty rare bourbon, which we're going to get into here in a second with Jay. So Jay, let's listen. You got a fascinating background, but Jay, what's your background kind of as it gets into the bourbon industry?
Yeah, looking at sort of going just backtracking in how I jumped into the industry. I was at Bellarmine. I had started an internship with Channel 32 and did a couple years with the sports department there.
Cool. That's awesome. Ray Calgill.
Yeah, and Rick Van Hoos.
There you go.
And bounced over to Wave 3 to do a little bit of news for about a year. Found that chasing bad weather and things like that wasn't as fun as sports. So I looked around, and then you look over at that big Old Forester bottle on top of Brown-Forman, and I looked at an opportunity to see what kind of media and marketing they had. So blessedly, I had the opportunity to be with Brown-Forman almost 12 years in the industry, where I helped build and develop some of the brands. If you look at Woodford Reserve, I was there in '96 when we cut the tape for that with Lincoln Henderson.
That's cool.
That's back when it was really a 2-man bottling line, to be honest. And then that brand actually did pretty well.
Yeah, Woodford's okay.
Yeah, Lincoln retired and created Angel's Envy. So if you look at that brand as well, and then the other one, I had that blessing of Jimmy Bedford with Jack Daniels. So I was able to travel with him, look at those brands, look at those launches, be a part of the brands.
Yeah, that's so cool
for that industry. So
okay, now how about the bourbon tour industry? How did you get into that?
Right. So after leaving Brown-Forman, I'm a true good old Louisville boy. I went with Brown and Williamson up to Providence, Rhode Island, moved over to Chicago with them, and then back. So I was now by trade, I do pharmaceutical sales for veterinarians. But 6 years ago, a good friend of mine, Joey Myers, who was with Procter & Gamble, moved up, wanted to start a bourbon industry.
Okay.
He dusted me off and brought me back out to really help him, kickstart that. And he went from one van, I think he's at 16 right now. So the industry is thing. So for myself, I really help navigate a day with folks who come into town and really want to experience bourbon.
So what's that look like? So I call you up and say, hey, I'm going to bring in a group. It might be 2 of us, it might be 40 of us, whatever it may be. Here's what we're looking to do. But you guys help kind of sculpt the day?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, excellent. So you'll call in, and what they'll do is they'll line up, like where are you looking to head. Obviously, some folks who are coming in might have some popular ones they want to play. But listening to us is like listening to locals, right? So we'll lay out the day. We'll pick out 2 good tours traditionally. We'll have a good luncheon somewhere in between, and then we'll do either 1 or 2 tastings throughout the day as well. So I often say the only stress you have is just jumping on the van. Once you're on that van, we'll take it from there.
Right. Yeah.
You can bring on what you want food-wise or beverage-wise. It's private. It's always yours. And the day is about yours. So that's really how the day plays out.
So, listen, they say that the bourbon tour industry is the #1 tourist attraction in Kentucky. That's crazy. And I mean, I guess you guys kind of experience of that or a big part of that. Tell us some of the favorite tours and why they rank so high for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what is phenomenal out there is the diversity that the distilleries offer us today. When you look at, obviously, you have the traditional old Maker's Mark, which is, I call it Augusta. It takes a little minute to get out there, but once you're there, the grounds are absolutely breathtaking.
It's pretty awesome.
Right?
Yes.
At the end of that tour, you get the opportunity to dip your own bottle. Very unique opportunity,
cool.
right? To take that home. You got your bigger ones, your Buffalo Traces, Heaven Hills, if you look at the history of distilled spirits license number, they're #1. So, I mean, that speaks volumes. Because if you look at if you were to come out with a distillery today, you'd be in the 20,000s for a distilled spirit. A lot of history there. Then you have some great opportunities in the middle when you got like James Pepper towards Lexington, Lux Row there in Bardstown, so some more middle of the pack. And then one of my favorites is towards the end is Whiskey Thief. There towards Frankfort, just up the street from Buffalo Trace. You go down a gravel road into a huge barn. You'll go in and almost do like a barrel pick. They have 5 barrels to select. You'll try them all. If you like one, you Whiskey Thief it out, put it in a bottle yourself, label it yourself, and take it home. The unique thing about that is they don't distribute their product anywhere on the planet. If you don't get it out of that barn and out of that barrel, you can't get it.
Wow.
If you don't go
that's the
to
one
that
spot you can get it, period.
Yeah, hands down. So if you want a unicorn guaranteed in the city or in the state,
wow.
There's your one.
I did not know about that one.
Whiskey Thief. Hey, we need to go do a bottle and add it to our raffle.
At least.
That's pretty cool.
But the other thing, real quick, is the other things you can vary in there as well is you can also do a horse farm out there in these tours with them. And then if you ever get an opportunity, there's some cooperages out there that build the barrels, which is a phenomenal experience. If you ever get to go into one of those and see those guys build those barrels, craftsmanship, the smell, everything about it is phenomenal.
So, Jay, what is it that you're telling the guests? Give us some of the highlights. So if I'm on a bourbon tour, what are some of the facts that I'm going to come home with that are going to be really cool?
Yeah, so when you really look at it, breaking down and just simplifying. For myself, I try to simplify bourbon for folks, right? It's a category of whiskey, right? You got rye whiskey, Scotch whiskey. All of them have their, rules.
Yeah.
For bourbon, it's very simple, A, B, and C. Rule 1 has to be made in America. We'd love to make it all, made here, but that's not the case. It's just hard to duplicate what we have with the limestone, the Four Seasons to get bourbon.
Okay.
America, barrel, brand new white charred oak barrel, only used once, so they're highly sought after they leave us. Scotch, Tabasco houses, everybody beer. Everybody wants these used bourbon barrels. And then C, corn, which we all know, 51% or more corn, right? You want to have that higher percentage of corn, get that more sweet, more mellow flavor. So then we'll talk about some of the buzzwords. White Dog, which is the spirit that comes right off the distill, right? Going to be white, going to be a little bit hot.
Yeah.
Angel Share, the evaporation that goes on in the rick houses. So we'll highlight some of those buzzwords that they're going to use. So I traditionally say we like to get you all Kentuckied up. I even throw in some things about the thoroughbreds, why they're all born on January 1. Why are all the thoroughbreds in Kentucky? They're all here 100% because of bourbon. Are you familiar with how that happened?
No.
I'll give you a little history lesson, and I'll make it quick. Back in the old days, these old boys would take these wooden boats, hop on those waterways with the limestone waterways right next to them that they use for the bourbon, but use it as a source to sell. During that time, they'd throw the bourbon on top of there. They'd float down, selling bourbon off every stop they could. Once they hit the end, basically around New Orleans, the guy with the fastest horse back to Kentucky got to make the most money going back down. Therefore, the thoroughbreds have sat with us ever since, and that's why we have them and blessedly have them.
I had no idea, Jay.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Now, why are they all born on January 1st?
So January 1st, if you want to come see the babies, the foals, when you're a thoroughbred, you run in the year that you were born. So if you come on our first Saturday in May, which we're getting ready to have, you'll be a 3-year-old, right? You only get one shot. you want to be the oldest 3-year-old you can be. So you're in that calendar year, like we talk about schools. You've got younger kids and older kids in the school.
Sure.
So when you want to go see the foals, would be right now, because they have been dropped as close as January and February as possible.
So in other words, every horse's birthday is January 1, no matter what day you're born on.
Right.
Okay.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense now.
So we blend in, again, we're going back to the bourbon, but we do blend in a lot of Kentucky.
What is the Devil's Cut?
So the Devil's Cut, when you look at a barrel with the staves, right? So Angel Share is what gets evaporated.
That's what's evaporated over time.
So if you look at the Devil's Cut, if you break down a used bourbon barrel, right, you'll turn that stave and you'll see this very deep line. Looks red, and it's very deep. It's amazing to see how deep the bourbon penetrates the barrel. But that red line is considered the Devil's Cut, right? So that's what Devil's Cut is.
That's cool.
Now, what if you go back to my buddy Lincoln Henderson, what did he name his brand? Angel's Envy, right? It's what the Angels didn't get. That's what's in that bottle.
That's how that's named that way.
All right.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
All right, Jay, you're dropping all kinds of knowledge here on us, man. I love it. All right, so listen, do you see distilleries changing and enhancing their bourbon tour experiences anytime soon?
Yeah, they're absolutely mind-blowing what these guys are creating with the on-hand experiences. The tasting experiences are phenomenal. They really talk to you about how to experience bourbon. You know, doing a Kentucky chew where you open your palate, to nosing where you slightly leave your mouth open to get those the scents from it. But the history that they provide all the way across is just amazing, and the people that they have working for them are phenomenal. The tour guides that they get. They blow me away sometimes with what they provide. It's amazing. I love I walk around with them and listen and gain knowledge all the time. So
yeah, and you learn about the history of the distillery, some of which are very, very old, along with the families that created them, and in some cases still own them today. I mean, I think the family history part of it's really cool as well.
100%.
Is there any ceiling here? So obviously the bourbon industry has exploded and it's growing and growing. Do you see that slowing down anytime soon?
Yeah. So I mean, I get asked all the time, how the bourbon boom began. I was there in the bourbon boom, so I love this for the industry. But what you'll see in the industry is a lot of times generational swings, right? Every 25, 30 years, you'll get that. When I was in it was gin and vodka, Zimas, if you go back.
Oh yeah,
that, right?
Yeah, sure.
That was it. We were back here, and you can almost name us all on one hand. Makers, Heaven Hill, Buffalo, Brown-Forman.
Right.
We were sitting here, nobody was looking at us. Today, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you get those generational swing. I think also what you end up getting is there's a lot of great entry points into bourbon today that weren't open in that day. You get them finished in different, oaks or flavorings. The other one, I keep this one in my freezer all the time, is a Wild Turkey American Honey. It's a great chilled shot.
In your freezer?
Yeah, it wasn't on freeze, but it's a great chilled shot. But the other thing is, it gives people. My wife's not a big bourbon drinker by any means, but she can drink some Wild Turkey American Honey on the rocks because it's a little bit flavored. So it gives her a starting block to graduate steps into it, where we didn't have that entry point. Back in the day, it was just, we are bourbon and that's all we do. So there's better entry points and that generational swing. And if you're looking at 25, 30 years, I think we still got a good 10, 15-year run on this.
I don't know, Jay. You got me fired up. I mean, Rich, the way Jay's talking about bourbon tours, it seems like our audience better get out there and buy some of these Foundation Bourbon Raffle tickets.
Absolutely. They are on sale as we speak.
I mean,
we're going to sell it out. Yeah.
All right. So, Jay, we've got 25 unbelievable lots in this bourbon
absolutely
raffle, right?
Yes,
and that's something unique to our raffle. It's we've got a lot more than most raffles do. Now, bourbon raffles aren't a unique thing, but I think the quality of what we have is better than most. What jumps out at you?
Congratulations, first of all. This is impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've been in the industry for a long time, and to have the opportunity to even have these to be available it sticks out to me. Obviously, everyone knows Pappy, right? That is,
What makes Pappy so rare?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, we discussed that angel share, right? I mean, Buffalo Trace, when they pull that out at, you got 20 and 23 years old. Unfortunately, the Angels have taken 2/3 of that, so they only have about a third left of that.
So the third of the barrel is all you get when it's finished,
right? Yeah. So
wow,
limited quantity. There's your thing, and it being a unicorn and the peak of bourbon, right? They can't. The challenge with the industry today is you can't just make you didn't know the boom was coming, and now it's here. It's not like making bread. You just ramp it up.
You're playing catch up every day,
and you got something that's going to take 6 to 20 years. That's hard to catch up to. So that's why that opportunity that you guys have here is so phenomenal for that to happen.
Now, in the Pappy lot, we have what they call the full lots, right?
Phenomenal.
So with the main one being our 23-year-old, okay, which obviously there's not a whole lot of those 23-year-old Pappies around, right?
Right.
But then there's also some other different kind of flavors. There's a rye. Talk to me a little bit more about that lot there.
Yeah. So when you look at going rye, rye is traditionally going to be a little bit spicy, a little bit more warm, a little hotter. Not always. Let your taste buds decide that, right? For myself, I love all bourbon. Don't get me wrong. If you've got it, I'll sample and I'll sit here and have a good conversation with you. But if I'm going to go out to the fire pit or the evening, I like a little bit of a wheat bourbon.
Okay.
It's just a little light, a little bit sweeter. But, again, we talked about it earlier. Yeah. It's everyone's own taste buds and what they like.
Right.
But with this lineup that you have, it's got such a diverse profile of palates across the line that there's no way you're not going to enjoy one of those. That's amazing. Congrats.
Now, are you if you win the Pappy, are you drinking that? Or are you storing that?
Well, let me put it this way. There's 3 people in the industry, right? When it comes to bourbon, right? You got my old neighbor. You can go over to his house. He's got 80 bottles of the hard to finds, and you can take a picture of them. You can look at them. You can dust them off.
He doesn't touch them.
No, you're not going to drink any of them. You got the buyers and traders, right? They're going to buy and trade,
right? Trying to make money.
And then you got the me's. If you're over at my house, we're drinking it. Now, this might be a different level.
You're gonna open it up.
This might be a whole other level. I'll be honest with this one. But the one thing that I do say about the bourbon is I always say, don't leave life on the shelf, right? And if you're going to have a great bourbon, experience that bourbon. But while you're experiencing the bourbon, what are you doing? You're experiencing life, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And there's no reason not to experience that.
And sharing it with somebody else. Awesome.
And sharing the stories of life's experiences, right? So don't leave life on the shelf with bourbon. That's me. That's where I fall.
I think you're spot on.
So, Jay, anything, so if you're picking one of these bottles out of any of these lots, what are you picking? Because you want to drink.
Yeah. And again, I the one that popped out to me, and again, I often say if I had one more sip before I left, now I'm truly a staple of Woodford because I was with them and Old Forester,
sure.
So that'll always be there. But the one that I've found for me is that Weller 12-year-old that you have in there is that's right.
Yeah, the Weller lot's awesome. Yeah, it really is.
It's hard to find. A couple of those Wellers aren't easy to find.
No, I definitely know that one's not.
That one's really hard. Yeah, really hard.
Now, which one's the orange label, Jay? Is that the 18?
I think that,
or is that the 12?
I think it's that's a good question. I don't want to commit to that. It's either, I think you may be onto it, right?
I think it might be the 18.
The 18.
All right. So, Rich, what about you? Out of all the lots, what's your favorite?
The Michter's a great bourbon. I like to drink it. Maker's, while it's not completely rare, there's some. It's a great bourbon.
Sure.
We've got the birthday bourbon, Brown Foreman in there, which is hard. It's hard to find.
Absolutely.
The Presence bottle in there, hard to find. Brown Foreman. And here's the thing, right? This is only our 3rd raffle. We've only done 3 of these.
3.
And we've got a group of us that work together. You're in that group. Mm-hmm. My sister Jeannie and her husband Pat, and then Matt and Sherry Odd, along with Julie in our office. And we're like kind of the committee.
Yeah.
Okay. And we work with all kinds of folks in this community to get that product. Most of that product, believe it or not, is donated to the foundation.
which is crazy.
Which is really crazy, particularly some of the higher end stuff. And the folks at Brown Forman have been great to us. There's so many other people in this community that, we need this bottle, we need that bottle, kind of put this thing together. It's all very organized now, but it comes from a lot of different places.
Sure.
And we've been really blessed by a ton of people in this community who've come together to help us build what's over 100 bottle inventory.
Yeah.
25 prize lots. We did 20 lots last year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the first year we did 5 lots.
Yep.
So this thing's getting bigger. And I'll see this. We've looked at a lot of raffles around the country. You've done a lot of work on this thing. It could be the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and this one's really, really good.
From what is in the actual raffle, I would completely agree with you. There's a couple different bottles that you just can't find anywhere else. They're in this raffle. Now, Jay, I'm curious if you've seen my favorite lot. Now, obviously, if I was going to win a lot, sure, the Pappy, but my favorite lot's the Horse Soldier lot.
Oh,
and that is because
great story.
That is because the story, and actually the on the label, there's actually metal used that came from the World Trade Center. I mean,
why don't you tell the story? A lot of people don't know that story. Tell the story.
Well, so there was soldiers that went over to Afghanistan, I think right after 9/11, and really they I don't know, Jay, you may know.
No, you're good. You're right. You're on.
But there was 13 of them. There was a movie made called 13 Horses, I think, and they go over and they basically they mapped out where they were going to bomb. And without these guys on these horses, and it was a very dangerous deal, they teamed up with some local Afghanistans. But it's a pretty amazing story. Well, these guys came back and started a bourbon company, right?
Absolutely.
And they're making bourbon in Kentucky, and they're using, like I've mentioned, they're using metal from the World Trade Centers on the bottles. It's just an unbelievable story, and the bourbon's really good too.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great story, great bourbon.
Now, I think you can buy a couple of these bottles pretty regularly, but we have the whole lot there, and some of these you can't find. It's pretty rare. So that particular lot, to me, I think is pretty neat.
That's a great story. 100%. That's awesome.
It is a really cool story.
Yeah,
anything else there, Jay, that kind of pops out to you? I know we mentioned a few.
I'll be honest. There's no wrong answer on this. I continue to look through it going, how blessed you guys are, and how much
you mentioned the Blantons earlier, because it's not easy to get all the letters.
Yeah, and you have an opportunity to get every letter, and that's a unique opportunity. But across the board, this is just phenomenal. I mean, and for those guys to partner with you and give you the opportunity for such a good opportunity and cause is mind blowing.
Yeah, to raise what could be $1 million from this one event. Think about how many hundreds of kids we're going to be helping this fall just from this single event. It's amazing.
Pretty incredible. But listen, we're ways off there. We need people's help. We need people to go buy tickets. We need you to support the situation, the foundation.
CEFLOU.org. That's our website. It's easy. It's $100 a ticket. No ticket limit on how many you want to buy. It's actually accelerated quite a bit last week and into this week, so it's moving.
It is moving.
And we're going to sell it out May 21st. It stops. And we're going to do the drawing on the 22nd, so it's coming up. It's not far away. So, we'd encourage people to go out and hit the site and buy some tickets and know that almost dollar for dollar, it's going right to these kids in the fall to help go to Catholic school. What could be better?
Jay, we so much appreciate you being here, taking the time to tell us about the Bourbon Tour experience and why it's so important to our economy in Kentucky, right? And Rich, with our bourbon raffle drawing that's coming up, as you mentioned, on May 22nd, we hope to help a lot more families in need and send their kids to Catholic schools in the fall. I mean, how awesome is that? It's just we're all working for the same goal here.
Correct.
Yeah, at the foundation, the answer is yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Jay, thank you for being here.
That's amazing.